All right, so today we're going deep on something pretty wild. The ending of Code Geass.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
It seems like no matter how much time passes, people are still debating like what actually happened.
Right. And yeah, it doesn't help that we got the Resurrection movie later on.
Exactly. It's like, did the creators always plan that, or were they just responding to all the crazy fan theories out there? We're going to try to figure that out today.
Looking at all this material you sent, it's amazing how much people have read into every little detail.
Yeah, like that whole cart driver theory thing. Remember that?
Oh, yeah, how could I forget? I mean, it really took off back in the day.
So, for anyone who missed that whole thing, the theory basically said that the cart driver at the very end, the one who just kind of shows up,
Right, right.
some people thought that was actually Lelouch, like in disguise.
Yeah, it was all about those little visual clues people picked up on, like the driver's posture, even their hairline seemed kind of similar to Lelouch.
And then there's CC talking to someone off screen. It's heavily implied that she's talking to the cart driver.
Yeah, and that's what really got people going. Like, it left so much open to interpretation.
The creators really knew how to get the fandom buzzing.
They did. It's funny, though, because with Resurrection, Cece actually brings Lelouch back to life.
Right. So it kind of makes you wonder, was that always the plan? Or did the movie just end up validating what the fans had been saying all along?
Honestly, it's hard to say for sure. The creators did initially claim that Lelouch was really dead in the original ending. But you have to admit that whole cart driver scene and Cece's dialogue, they kind of left the door open for doubt.
Yeah, it just goes to show how powerful those little details can be. Like sometimes a story takes on a life of its own beyond what the creator initially intended.
Totally. And then the Resurrection movie kind of comes in and embraces those fan theories in a way.
Okay, so speaking of theories, we got to talk about the code theory. This one's all about how Lelouch might have actually survived through a code.
Ah, the code. Now, for anyone who needs a refresher, a code basically makes you immortal in the Code Geass universe.
Super handy. And the theory is that Lelouch got his code from his father Charles during that whole mental showdown they had.
Right. And there's some pretty interesting visual evidence for this. Remember when Charles touches Lelouch's neck?
I do.
Well, that's exactly how Vivi transferred his code to Marianne earlier in the series. It's like a direct visual parallel.
Whoa, okay, I see what you mean.
And if you consider how codes work, it makes that moment super significant.
Right, because then there's also the whole thing with how Lelouch's geese evolves over time.
Oh, yeah, how it starts to look like wings.
Yeah, exactly. And that's a visual trait that's usually associated with code users, like CC.
Exactly. It's like another piece of the puzzle that fits right into the code theory.
And if we look at Resurrection, Lelouch doesn't seem to have aged at all. And that's another classic sign of a code holder.
Totally. But here's the big question. If Lelouch did have a code, then how did Suzaku manage to kill him during the Zero Requiem? It doesn't really add up right.
That's a good point. But the theory has an answer for that, too. Yeah, so the idea is that Lelouch's death was staged. Like it was all part of the Zero Requiem plan.
Wow. So he let Suzaku stab him on purpose.
Well, yes, supposedly. If he was immortal, then it would just be a really convincing performance, right? Like a way to solidify the whole Lelouch is the villain narrative.
That's pretty intense.
It is. It just adds another layer of complexity to their whole plan.
Okay, but if we're accepting the idea that Lelouch might have survived, either through the cart driver theory or the code theory, then that opens up another possibility.
Finish that.
That the Zero Requiem wasn't really about achieving world peace.
Oh, that's a dark take.
Right. Some people believe that it was all just a huge deception so Lelouch could secretly maintain control.
So instead of being a selfless hero, he was actually manipulating everyone.
That's the theory. And there's certain things that point in that direction. Like, remember what happens right after Lelouch is supposedly assassinated.
Yeah, the crowd start cheering for Zero.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But it was Suzaku who killed him. And he was never exactly a fan of Lelouch. So why would people cheer for him?
It does seem kind of convenient.
Right. Almost like some sort of geese manipulation was involved.
Yeah, maybe he used his geese one last time to sway the public's opinion.
It's definitely a possibility. And then you have Nunnally. She seems to understand Lelouch's entire plan just by touching his hand.
I remember that scene. It was really emotional.
Yeah, but it also felt a little too easy. Like, maybe that was Lelouch using a subtle form of geese on her before he died.
Oh, so he implanted the whole plan in her mind.
It's a theory. And then there's Resurrection. In that movie, Lelouch seems way more focused on helping Cece with her own goals.
Oh yeah, like achieving her own version of true love or whatever.
Right. And some people see this as evidence that Lelouch was always driven by his own ambitions, not just by altruism.
That's a very different way of looking at his character.
It is. It kind of reframes his motivations and makes you question whether the Zero Requiem was truly selfless or not.
Okay, so we've talked about Lelouch potentially pulling the strings. But what about Cece?
Ah, Cece. She's such an enigma, right?
Yeah, totally. And there's a whole theory that she was the mastermind behind a lot of the events.
Yeah, like she was playing the long game with her own agenda the whole time.
Okay, so how does that theory work?
Well, we know that Cece makes contracts with people who receive Geass.
Right, and it's all tied to her desire for true love or to finally end her immortality.
Exactly. And a lot of fans debate whether Lelouch truly fulfilled that for her. Like,
Yeah.
was there real romantic love between them?
Because if not, then maybe she had other reasons for guiding Lelouch down a specific path.
Precisely. Plus, she's been alive for centuries, so you got to imagine she's learned a thing or two about strategy and manipulation.
Oh yeah, she's definitely not someone you want to underestimate.
And then there's that famous scene at the end of the original series where she smiles.
Right. What was that all about?
Was it genuine happiness with how the Zero Requiem played out? Or was it something more calculated? Like she knew something we didn't?
It's one of those moments that's just begging for interpretation.
Exactly. And the source material you sent even mentions a line from the manga where Cece suggests that Lelouch's soul isn't actually gone.
Really?
Now obviously the manga isn't always considered canon, but it does add to the whole idea that Cece might have a bigger plan in motion. Maybe even bringing Lelouch back somehow.
Like she's playing a game on a whole other level.
Totally. And I think to really appreciate how much people have obsessed over this ending, we should touch on some of the wilder fan theories out there.
Oh yeah, let's hear them.
Okay, so there's the one where Lelouch is reincarnated as Orange Kun. Remember that meme?
Uh-huh.
Well, some people think that's Lelouch reborn.
That's pretty out there.
It is. Then there's the theory that Rolo's ghost shows up in Resurrection through his watch.
Through his watch.
Yeah. People analyze every frame of that movie.
I bet.
And then there's the really trippy one where the whole Code Geass story is actually just a giant Geass illusion.
Whoa! Like the Matrix.
Exactly. And then there are even some people who think Scheisel actually had the right idea all along.
Oh wow, so they're siding with the villain.
Well, not exactly. More like they think his vision for the world, even though it was kind of authoritarian, might have been the more stable option.
Interesting. It just goes to show how many different interpretations there are of this ending.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah.
So what's the final verdict then? Is Lelouch dead or alive?
Honestly, it's still up for debate. The creators might have intended for him to die in the original series, but the Resurrection movie definitely brought him back. So it's hard to deny that.
Right. It's like they acknowledged those fan theories and made them a reality.
And looking back, I think that ambiguity in the original ending was probably intentional. The creators knew how to spark discussion and keep the fandom engaged.
Yeah, they totally succeeded there. It's been years, and people are still analyzing every little detail.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I have a final thought for our listeners. What does this whole debate about Lelouch's fate tell us about how much we crave closure in stories?
That's a good question.
Like when an ending intentionally leaves things open to interpretation, or when a later installment changes the original meaning? How does that affect our connection to the characters and the world?
It definitely makes you think.
And what was it about Code Geass specifically that allowed for so many different interpretations to not only emerge, but to actually thrive for years and years?
It's really fascinating how some stories just stick with us long after they're over. And Code Geass is definitely one of those stories. The ending might be ambiguous, but that's also what makes it so captivating and thought-provoking.
Yeah, it's a testament to the power of good storytelling.
Absolutely.
So if you're a Code Geass fan out there, keep those theories coming. The debate's far from over.
Absolutely.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
It was a pleasure.
Until next time, stay curious.
And keep theorizing.